Welcome to Key Conversations, where you get to connect with the best of the music business, unlocking the secrets to exploding your music career, presented by In the Key of Success. I'm your host, Cheryl B. Engelhardt. The conversations you're about to hear are between our special guest and participants of my MX4 course, the Marketing and Branding, Money-Making, Mentorship Mastermind for Musicians. They are singers, songwriters, composers, producers, and artists just like you, asking their burning questions of our experts while transforming their careers over 6 weeks. If you think this could be you, check out mx4course.com to schedule a free half-hour coaching call with me to see if we'd be a good fit. So, let's get started. I am super excited to be speaking with Darren Solomon today and the other MX4 participants. Darren is one of my longtime composing mentors, but he's got such a broad career, and I think he really represents a true artist who has found the balance between working on commercial work, literally commercials, as well as being a musician. And I mean, he's played bass for Ray Charles and Barry Manilow and a number of other amazing legends in the world. And at the same time has created his own records as an artist, his own compositions, doing a ton of interesting collaborations and stuff with dancers and cool spaces. And he's just, it's an inspiration to have you here. So thank you for taking time out of your very busy day to be with us, and welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
So before I pass the torch to the other people on the call here to ask you some questions, I just wanted to sort of get the ball going and ask you, what are, say, 3 highlights in your career that have sort of gotten you to where you are today as an artist, or things that stick out as turning points, or anything that you would want to share in terms of your story? Sure.
I mean, I think certainly the first break I had was Ray Charles' gig. And that was just one of those crazy stories that kind of comes out of nowhere. You know, I didn't, it's not something I was shooting for or really had any reasonable chance of getting, but it just came out of the blue. It was somebody I met at NYU when I was going there, and literally overheard a conversation in one corner of the band room at NYU between a guy who was a professional trombone player who happened to be sitting in with the band that night. And he just said, yeah, well, you know, I'm going out with Ray this summer, and we're putting a few new musicians in the band. And I said, oh, that sounds amazing. Like, would they ever consider, you know, they look for a new bass player, and, you know, is that something that I could do? And he goes, yeah, he said, give me a tape, because it was 1988, and that's what we had, our cassette tapes. So I gave him a cassette tape, and, you know, I was 19. I was, you know, living in the dorm at NYU. I mean, it's everything I've learned up until that point was, you know, you do that, you put yourself out there, but of course, you don't wait by the phone, and of course it doesn't happen, and you just put that energy out in the world and try to get let people know you're there. And so I did it, and, you know, promptly forgot about it. A couple months later, when I was moving out of the dorm, my answering machine, again, because it was 1988, and you had machines that would answer your phone. I'll explain that to the younger folks there. And it was blinking, and I literally taking my last tub full of, you know, my stereo equipment and stuff out of the dorm room into my summer sublet, and he'd called just before I unplugged the answering machine, and I hit play, and it was Ray himself asking me to give him a call back, which I did. And he asked me some brief questions about freight shipment for my amp, which was just one of the strangest conversations I've ever had in my life. Like, telling me the different options between, you know, like freight and like big freight and little freight, and using a plane versus a train or whatever. I was like, oh, why am I talking about this with Ray Charles? And then he said, well, I need you out this weekend. I want to hear what you can do. So called up Ben and Jerry's, where I was scooping ice cream, and said, I'm not going to be in tomorrow. I need to go to LA to play for Ray. And went out, and there was a bunch of bass players there, which I was kind of disappointed because the way he was talking, I thought that I you know, had this thing kind of a good chance of making it happen. But he just one by one kept people going in and out. And after I played, he called me in and asked me if I had a passport and a union card. And I did have a passport. I did not have a union card, but I prevaricated and said that I did have a union card, and ran to the union right then to go get one. Then went on the road with him right then. Started the 2 years of touring right there. So that was certainly, I feel that was the time in my life when we all have that moment when, you know, you're studying and you're high school and you're learning your instrument, and you're kind of, a lot of people in your life give you different messages. There'll be some people that encourage you and say, wow, you have something and you got to share this with the world. And other people say, look, it's terrible out there as an artist of any kind, writer, painter, whatever. Maybe you shouldn't do this, and you have to make that personal call based on what's in your heart and what your passion is and what makes you happy, whether you're going to dive in and try to live the life of art and music and your passion, or if you're going to, sort of say, you know what, I can play bass at night and I can write computer programs for banks during the day. And no judgment. I mean, whatever makes any of us happy and doesn't hurt other people is fine. But, there's those points. And so this really, I didn't know I was going to be a professional musician, really. I mean, I'd wanted to, but I wasn't sure if I had what it took. And that settled it for me. I was like, okay, if I can get this gig, if I can do this tour, my doubts are gone. This is what I'm going to do. And it was an amazing 2 years. I mean, it was just life and music and everything. To have an experience was ridiculous and insane. And the world is a different place than I thought it was, and music is different than I thought it was. And there's just something about that kind of touring and that kind of diving right in experience that is astonishing and mind-blowing. And it set me up for, I think, a career in music. So, that was certainly one of the things for me, the transitional moment. And what else can I say? Well, I'll give you one other one, a project, just a passion project that was a lark that I did here at the studio just for laughs. And it was this kind of art project where I set up a bunch of different videos that musically worked together when played asynchronously. So you could play any video at any time. And at the time I was playing with HTML and CSS, basic web programming. So I made a little website where you could play the different videos, and programming end of it was unbelievably simple. But the musical part was interesting and a bit of a challenge to put together. And it was a time when crowdsourcing was kind of becoming a buzzword. And so not to try to be a part of that, but just because I thought this could be a good way to make that happen, I crowdsourced a bunch of additional videos for it. And that was just a laugh, like a thing to do for myself. And then it turned out to be pretty cool and pretty popular. I was really satisfied with the project, and it just hit at the right time, something that people were interested in. And it has a little bit of a wow factor to it when you play with it. People kind of, oh, wow, I didn't really know that this could happen. And it was a great ride, like just a bunch of great energy. Did a nice interview on Weekend Edition on NPR, and just a series of really cool interviews and promotional things. Did a commercial it was a Chilean phone company where they were like, we bring you the world of the internet, and we bring you the people that are doing cool stuff on the internet, like this guy in New York. And so I was like, and had my own 30-second commercial. There's stupid things that bizarre things that I would never have thought that came out of a project of just love and I had no expectations of. And that contrasts with some other things that I really put my heart into, but also was like, I really want to sell these CDs, or I really want to, this is a thing I really want to make happen, and pushed and pushed and pushed and fought up against whatever inertia and, over saturation there is out there, and got, disappointed and dejected and lost some energy. So it was an interesting thing to kind of have something that wasn't the one that I was going to really push become the one that became me, where I'm telling people, oh, I can't do those interviews because I simply don't have time. And I just would never thought that would have been the case for me. So that was really exciting.
And that project can be found where?
That's in B flat. So it's inbflat.net is the website.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a super cool project. I got to see you creating that, which is really special. Oh, I have so many questions to ask you, but I know that we've got some MX4 participants that are inspired by your career and have some questions for you already. They've done some research on you, so I'm gonna pass it to them, and then we can do some laser round later. But let's start. Chrysanthi, do you have a question for Darren?
I have too many. I'll just try to do one right now. So the Ray Charles gig was when you realized you were going to be a professional musician, but how did you make the transition from largely a performing career to a composition and more artistically experimental career?
Yeah, so I think I can tell you my specific story, and then also maybe think a little bit about what might be a more general way to think about it, because everyone's path is probably going to be a little bit different. But for me, that was right at the era when you could kind of get a home rig that would be something worth having, when I was leaving Ray Charles Band and looking for other things to do. And that field sounded really exciting to me, so I bought the gear and put it in the corner of my bedroom. And the only gig that I had at the beginning was my dad used to produce really low-budget horror and action movies. They're not anything you've really heard of or seen. They're just sort of, if you stay up really late and watch some channel 790 or something, like maybe you'll see one someday, but they're not big movies, but they needed music. So my dad was like, yeah, you can do the music. It wasn't much money to speak of, but it was a great chance. What I learned later was just to get the kinks out of basically, this is how you work to picture, just because you need to have, that basic skill level. And hopefully you don't have that while somebody is paying you a heck of a lot of money and waiting for you to be awesome. Hopefully there's some chance to mess up and cut your teeth a little bit. So for me, that turned out to be a great chance to work for a very low pressure environment and not much money, but just get through, okay, this is how you use the gear. I didn't have any experience in anything other than bass playing and piano playing. So it's like, this is a microphone. If I plug it into my bass amp, this plug doesn't fit. So how do I do that? Well, maybe there's an adapter. Okay, that still doesn't work. Oh, an audio interface? What's that? Okay. Mm-hmm. So these things that, are just that I think people now probably come out more of a world that connects those things. But I was the guy playing scales on bass, and that is really not connected to how you build a small rig and start recording. So I had to pay those basic dues. And however you do that, I think at some point you have to do it. You can make music for your friends' videos or, I don't know, make your own videos with your own music. So I got to a point where I felt pretty confident and pretty competent at it. And I guess the best connection ended up for me being my wife, ex-wife, wife at the time, knew a couple guys that did music for picture in a company called Bigfoot Music in New York. And she'd been telling them about me, and they said they'd be happy to meet me. And so we informally went over there and just said, played them what I had and talked to them. And they were like, yeah, why don't you play some bass for us and maybe do an occasional demo, all of which I did. And it turned out that my skill set quite serendipitously aligned with what the skill set is for writing music for TV commercials, which isn't always the case. You can be a great composer, you can be a great instrumentalist, you can be a great human being, but you may not have that particular skill set that's needed for this gig or film scoring or video game scoring. And I say that without judgment. You can still be an amazing musician and a great whatever, and not, it's not necessarily the only kind of music is music for TV commercials, or that somebody that's not good at this is not a good musician. It's just it turns out it's a somewhat specific field of the business that you have to have certain skills, and not all of them are musical skills. A lot of them are more like lack of ego maybe, or flexibility, let's say, might be a better way to put it. So that was kind of my transition. It was getting the gear, learning the gear in an unpressured way, and then getting an opportunity to rock hard and really show what I could do, and having excitement about it. Like, wow, I really want to do this. And then it was the old, what's the old thing that they attribute to Duke Ellington, that luck is when opportunity meets preparation, and certainly if that's the case, that's how my thing played out. So yeah, that's my personal story. And then I think in general, to expand it a little bit, I think I see it now as just make stuff. The 2-word answer to that is just be making a lot of cool stuff, whatever that is. And like the way in B flat happened for me, like it was just making something that was fun, that was cool, and that one among the other stuff I made happened to hit. And hopefully if you make enough cool stuff, something somewhere connects with somebody in a way that does something for you, and you're still making the stuff you want to make. So there's that creative, rather than be like, here's my one symphony that I'm going to work on for a year, or my one thing, like be like, oh, you want to collaborate on that? Absolutely. You need music for that? Yeah. There's kind of a fear thing that I see some people do where they'll be like, oh, they want my music? Well, how much are they willing to pay me? And is it going to be used for this only or this? And then what's the publishing and whatever? And there's a time for that, no doubt. But depending on where you're at your career and where you want to be, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, you know what, let me just make some cool stuff with cool people. And, the people that are really afraid of like their music being stolen or whatever, I find are often not the people that really make the cool stuff or whatever. And I mean, the business end of it, yeah, we got to take care of. I mean, don't get screwed and look for the places where you get paid, because we have to make a living. But that, for the very beginning, don't hesitate just to make cool stuff because it's cool, and that energy will carry on into quality and excitement and something that is compelling for other people to listen to. If it's Electronic Arts calling you for their video game and they want to use it for free, yeah, you use your music for free. Don't say yes. But if it's a buddy that's making a cool mobile app, then say, yeah, let's do this thing and have an amazing time and make something badass. And it's going to be really cool. And now you can point to it and say, look, I've done this mobile game and check it out. So yeah, I don't really do free stuff because I've had this experience. There's also the people aspect of it, which I think is the cynical version of that is it's who you know. And I really don't believe that. I don't believe that you have to come in with a famous person or some incredible connection. I think that it's more about that guy sitting next to you in the band, or the woman taking the college course with you, or whatever. These people in 6 months are going to be like, oh, I remember that person that was sitting next to me. They were really good at X and I need X. And so it's definitely great to make those connections in a non-cynical way, not in a how can I schmooze and connect and join my professional network on LinkedIn and whatever. It's just more about honest, like, wow, I want to be in a band with this person, and it turns out that person is one person in that band is probably going to do something amazing, and it's either you or that person, and that person, other person is going to bring you along because they know you and they work with. And that's how so much happens in this business. Again, not in a cynical way, like I'm just using my friends, just more like I need a guy that plays tuba, and that guy I worked with last week plays tuba, so let's use that person. I mean, I had one of those just the other day, which was I did a show. I'm curating a venue called National Sawdust here in New York, and the show I curated has a lot of electronic music, and somebody brought along a cello player who just floored me. And her name was Ashley Bathgate, and she's kind of a rock star in the new music world. And I'd heard her name before, but never heard her play. And I immediately understood why she's so popular in that world, because she brings such a passion to her music. And then I think it was that night we got a call where they needed a cello player for this fun job with Eleanor Friedberger from the Fiery Furnaces. And I was just like, oh man, couldn't be anyone better than her in every way, musically, personality. She's just going to nail this. So I recommended her, and 2 days later she was on the scoring stage in Brooklyn with us doing the commercial. So yeah, I mean, it was nothing. It wasn't, hopefully no cynicism about it. It was just like, awesome, great to meet you. I have a gig done. Everyone's happy. Everyone's better off for it. Kind of a long answer to that question, but I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that's a great question. The transition from, I mean, for you, it was, someone who knows someone, and you just started the conversation and then showed up when you needed to show up and got to prove yourself, which is also how it worked. Just to give the listeners a little bit of context, Darren is currently still a composer at Bigfoot Music, in addition to all the other cool stuff that you're doing. And it's how we met. I was working for a video editing film company in the advertising world, and through them had met Bigfoot, and they didn't have any jobs for me, but once a month for 11 months, I called, asked for a job, and they said no. And at the end of the conversation, I said, can I call you next month? And they said yes. And the 12th time I called, they said, actually, our assistant tech just left. We'd love to have you come in as that position. And that's how I got into Bigfoot. And again, it was showing up and making sure that when you got the opportunity that you just stepped into it, and you can make it happen through who you know, and someone's going to introduce you to someone that's going to make a difference for you. And then really honing those skills. And I think you sort of poo-poo the 80s and that you had to learn gear, but I think there's a learning curve for everyone in that sense, whether it's getting to know your composing platform, if that's Logic, or if you're a Pro Tools person, or however you're composing, or if you're doing a live thing and you really want to start to do loops. Like there's always a learning curve. If you see something, you're like, I want to do that, got to figure out how to do that. And I think that now there's so many resources to figure out that stuff. You can go on YouTube and there's courses and but I think everyone's got some sort of learning curve once they got their eye on the prize, and you kind of just dove into the deep end and were like, we're going to do this. Let's figure it out. Okay, that doesn't work. That plug doesn't work. But I think we all sort of experience that plug doesn't fit, whatever that is, a digital format. But yeah, I like to hear that transition part.
Stay tuned next week when we continue to talk with Darren about all things creativity and composition. Please don't forget to rate and comment on iTunes and Stitcher Radio if you like this podcast. It's the best way to keep it going, get more subscribers, and continue to share this awesome information with the indie music community. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. All of the music on this podcast has been created by yours truly. The theme song is called Inevitably, written with Cameron Ernst and produced by Joey Ock. You can find all the songs, plus more information on my music career at CherylBE.com. If you want to be one of the reasons I can keep this podcast and my blog Living on Gigging going, then head to patreon.com/CBEmusic. There, you can contribute $1, $2, $5 for the creation of each of these free musician resources. Together, we can keep them coming and inspire other creative people to do what they love and do it well. Again, that's patreon.com/CBEmusic. Key Conversations is sponsored in part by Bandzoogle. They make it easy to build a beautiful website for your music. Their step-by-step system gets you online in minutes, and you can choose from hundreds of mobile-friendly themes and customize them with their easy point-and-click editor. All the features you could possibly imagine for a professional website are built in. So, because you are a Key Conversations podcast listener, you get a special 3-month free trial just for you. Go to www.inthekeyofsuccess.com/resources and click on the Bandzoogle logo to access your free extended trial.